Patrick Mahomes has returned to being an elite fantasy quarterback. We'll tell you why on today's edition of the Locked On Dynasty podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fabiano. You can find me on the X machine at Michael_Fabiano. Of course, my good pal here and co-host Marcus Mosher, always along the ride with me. He is at Marcus_Mosher on Twitter. And of course, as always, we appreciate you guys for making us your first listen of the day and being an everyday listener on the show, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Marcus, we've got to start talking about Monday Night Football. Now, the big story, obviously, was that the Chiefs got beat. And the Jacksonville Jaguars seem like they are for real. But from a fantasy perspective, and you said this back in the preseason, and I was not on board, Patrick Mahomes is maybe back to being an elite fantasy quarterback, Marcus, but he's not doing it the way we thought that he was going to do it, right?
It's all on the ground. 6 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown on this one, on top of throwing for 318 yards and a score. He's back to being a fantasy superstar because he has to be, Fabs, because I don't think this defense is anywhere near as good as what we've seen over the last couple of years. They can't really run the ball without him. I mean, Kareem Hunt's actually playing pretty well. Isaiah Pacheco is fine. Kareem Hunt is fine. But they kind of need him to throw the ball all over the yard. And you look at some of these matchups coming up with like the Lions in week 6, they've got the Bills coming up. It just sets up for a lot of these big fantasy performances from Patrick Mahomes.
Listen to these numbers. Okay. He is basically the Chiefs' best runner right now. He leads the Chiefs in rushing yards. He's on pace for 650 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. I mean, guys, that automatically puts him in the top 2 or 3 at quarterback. And based on just running the football, he's on pace for 126 points, just running the ball. Like, this is not Mike Vick. This is not Lamar Jackson. Now, we always knew that Mahomes could run with the ball, but not like this. And I just wonder, Marcus, if this is something that he can keep up. Like, again, he is Isaiah Pacheco. Nope. Kareem Hunt scores 2 touchdowns last night. By the way, that backfield is a disaster. Yeah. It's Mahomes. Mahomes is the guy who is the best fantasy runner in Kansas City. Can this last? Now, I will say this. When you get Rashee Rice back after week 6, maybe the offense changes. Because now you got Rice, you got Hollywood, you got Worthy, who didn't do great last night. Maybe the ankle was bothering him a little bit. You know, Tyquan Thornton, who we'll talk about, he doesn't seem like he's going away just yet. Travis Kelce had a good game last night, or should I say Taylor Swift's fiance. Is this running success going to end here soon for Mahomes once he gets all of his assets back in the passing game?
Probably to this degree. Like, I don't see him running for 60 yards and a touchdown every week, because I do think Rice is that guy over the middle of the field that takes some of those gimme targets. He gets open quick. He can make plays after the catch. He's kind of that. He's basically the new Travis Kelce. Like, he's the guy that Mahomes trusts in every one of these big spots. So once you get Rice back, we'll see if Worthy can get a little healthier as the season goes on. You mentioned the rest of the weapons. Like, I don't think they're going to need him to run as much, but you're seeing in these games, like, the offensive line still isn't very good. He's going to have to run. I still think this year, because of the way this team is structured, and because Fabs, now they are 2-3, and they've got a difficult schedule coming up. Like, I think when people were looking at this stretch of like, hey, they play the Colts and the Broncos and the Chargers and the Bills, maybe that would be some games that they could win easily outside of the Bills game. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. They're going to have to kind of grit and grind their way to 9 to 10 wins to try to make the playoffs. I think Mahomes is going to be locked in as a top 3, top 4 fantasy and dynasty quarterback the rest of the way.
So with that being said, and looking ahead to the future with Mahomes, because, you know, Travis Kelce, who knows if he's going to play next season, you know, obviously they'll have Rice, they'll have Worthy, you know, Hollywood Brown's on a 1-year deal. Is Mahomes maybe somebody now that you're looking to flip in dynasty? So, for example, right now he's the QB6. Obviously, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson going ahead of him, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow. I think right now you'd probably rather have Mahomes over Joe Burrow because of the injury issues.
And one of them plays. Yes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Jalen Hurts is still going over Mahomes, but like a Drake May, if somebody came at you with a deal where you would potentially get Drake May and maybe a little bit more for a Patrick Mahomes, like, is it time to sell high on Mahomes? Because again, like as good as he can be as a passer, and of course we've seen it, he's had massive years as a passer. It's the running that's put him over the top. And if we think the running is going to end when Rice comes back, and these projections, this pace that he's on is going to start declining a little bit, is it time now to sell high on Mahomes or just ride the lightning?
I mean, I think if you can get someone like Drake May, obviously you're considering that because he's so much younger, and you just the running is going to happen more with Drake May than what it will Mahomes. Right? I think Patrick Mahomes is 30 right now. That's not to say that he's old, but he's not going to run this way 4 years from now, right? But outside of that, like, am I flipping him for Caleb Williams? No, I'm not trading him for Jared Goff or Jordan Love or CJ Stroud or Brock Purdy. Like, the names go on and on. I think the one that's a little fascinating is Baker Mayfield. Like, what do you do with Baker Mayfield? Because Baker's putting up monster fantasy numbers. They're the same age. They're both 30. He's not running as much as Mahomes is, but that offense is just clicking. That's the only guy that I think I would potentially be open to. But I think for the most part, you're just holding tight on Patrick Mahomes right now.
Yeah, you mentioned Caleb Williams. So you would flip Mahomes for Williams?
It'd be close. I probably would. I would rather have Mahomes, I think, in dynasty leagues.
All right, fair enough. I don't know if I agree with you on that one, but
well, I think the thing is,
it's close. I mean, it's close because right now we have we're on that that adrenaline high of Mahomes just being this ridiculous running quarterback, which I don't know if that's going to last or not. But yeah,
there's stability. There's stability in knowing that Patrick Mahomes is going to be a starting quarterback for the next 7-8 years at least, right? Whereas I think almost every other quarterback in that next range, like, we love Caleb Williams, right? Like, we think he's going to be a superstar quarterback. That's not a given. We've seen a lot of these quarterbacks wash out, or especially Bears quarterbacks. You know how I love my history, Fabs, right? Like, I think Caleb is going to be fine. There's just a lot of safety in Patrick Mahomes that I probably would take.
It's like we're in the bizarro world right now.
Wow, you're hosting the show today and being the star.
That's so crazy. At wide receiver, Tyquan Thornton led the Chiefs in receiving yards. He had 90, 5 targets, 3 catches. Obviously, that's going to change when Rashee Rice returns. You've got Detroit coming up. That's a big game. Is Tyquan Thornton somebody that you're maybe going to roll out there for one more week as a dynasty starter? Or is he kind of just going to the bench here starting soon?
I don't know what to think because he scored 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games.
Yep.
He's been over 59 receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games. He's never going to get a ton of targets in this offense. And you mentioned Rashee Rice coming back. But am I crazy for thinking he's just a better player than Hollywood Brown right now? And I kind of wonder, like, once Rice comes back, maybe it's Hollywood that gets sent to the bench because Worthy's kind of the guy that does everything, at the line of scrimmage and the drag routes and all these manufactured touches. And Thornton is the guy that can make plays down the field. And then they sprinkle in Juju a little bit as kind of like almost like a pseudo tight end. I don't think Thornton is somebody that you're starting every single week, but he's not a bad guy to just have on your bench to put in during bye weeks. If I'm in a dynasty league, like I'm making sure that he's at least buried on my roster because there is some talent there.
Yeah. He's been a surprise. I guess when you leave New England, sometimes things go well for a young wide
the history of those New England receivers.
Oh, I
right,
do.
Babs?
I do. All right. When we come back on the program, Marcus and I are going to talk about the continued struggles of Brian Thomas Jr. and whether or not Travis Hunter's even startable anymore. We'll talk about that when we come back from the break. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is so much fun. It's a simple way to add more excitement to your football Thursdays, Mondays, Sundays. You could pick more or less on player projections, just like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown. And right there, you're in the game. And I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. And I think my favorite part of PrizePicks is just they added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, their rush yards, or touchdowns, all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. And the new injury reboot feature is awesome. I mean, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. And there's been a lot of injuries this year. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty podcast. I'm Fabs. He's Marcus. I think that's the way it goes today. Even though I'm hosting. So let's talk about the Jaguars. You know, we went through Kansas City and Mahomes and the results of the game last night. Trevor Lawrence had a big game. 26.2 fantasy points, but he rushed for 2 touchdowns. And I think this was an outlier game because the passing game, Marcus, is still not working. And besides the camera catching Lawrence, index finger deep up his nose.
They did him dirty.
The thing I remember most about that game last night was him being stepped on by an offensive lineman, trying to get up, falling down again. Chris Jones not really doing anything to try and stop him, and Lawrence scores the touchdown. It almost reminded me a little bit of when Romo fumbled the ball against Seattle.
I had the exact same thought. I thought, he's going to get caught. Yep.
Right. And he didn't get in. But your thoughts on Lawrence? I mean, listen, we can make fun, but he did drive that offense down the field in the 2-minute drill and won the game for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and he had some really nice passes on that drive, including a 33-yard shot to Brian Thomas Jr., who we'll get to in a second. He had another pass, I think it was to Parker Washington on the sideline, where he just ripped it. I thought Lawrence played pretty well. He did have an interception in this game, but we should mention the interception was borderline pass interference. Actually, borderline might
even that was 100% pass interference. Every Chiefs hater out there was like, "Oh, they're back in bed with the referees after that one."
I know. So that's why and that took away a drive. And, I think this offense is not far away from really putting it together. Like, you see flashes of it. And again, they scored 31 points in this game. I know 7 of them came from a pick 6. And that's the other thing is Kansas City just had the ball basically the entire game because of some turnovers, because of the Devin Lloyd pick 6. I'm starting to buy into this Jacksonville offense. I think there's going to be easier games that are going to be coming up for them. I'm bullish here. I want to be in on Jacksonville.
I want out of the passing game. Brian Thomas Jr. is not the same player. He had 12 points. It was his best game of the year. Like last year, we were getting 18, 19, 20 massive games. Mac Jones, no longer there. Mac Jones apparently made BTJ. He was supposed to be like this elite type guy. We were drafting him in, the end of the first round. If you were in redrafts and startups, he was a high pick at the wide receiver position. You're not going to live on 6 targets a week. And I got to be honest with you. I mean, you got Seattle coming up next. You probably have to play Brian Thomas Jr., but he is going to be part of the reason why, if you don't make the playoffs, your team failed because one of your elite players is not playing at that elite level. And Brian Thomas Jr., I don't know what the second half of last season was. I liked it. But unfortunately, we forgot about what was the first half of the season without Mac Jones. And when Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback, Brian Thomas Jr. was a good wide receiver. He was nowhere near elite. And now you got Lawrence back in there. They bring in Travis Hunter, who we're going to talk about, by the way. And, you got Diami Brown. Brenton Strange, unfortunately, got hurt last night. So, he didn't play in the second half. But now there's more weapons. And so I wonder now in Dynasty, is Brian Thomas Jr., I mean, you can't trade him right now because unless somebody is in love with him and wants to really just look back at that second half of last season and go after him, you're going to get pennies on the dollar for him. So, I mean, I guess at this point, Marcus, you're just throwing him out in your lineup and kind of crossing your fingers?
I mean, probably. I think part of it is last year when they had Mac Jones, right? They got into a lot of these games where they were in negative game scripts and They lost a lot of them. I'm looking at their schedule right now. I believe they went 2-9 in their final 11 games. So Brian Thomas Jr. was able to get a lot of targets in these games that they were losing. I just think Jacksonville's better this year. I mean, they're one stupid Jake Browning drive away from being 5-0. And they do I think they're like Super Bowl contenders? No, I don't. But I think they're just a much better team than they were last year. And I think we're going to get a lot of these game scripts where, Trevor Lawrence is only throwing the ball 25 times, 26 times. And yeah, that's not ideal from a fantasy perspective, but you're just going to have to live with it here with Brian Thomas Jr.
And the Travis Hunter thing is even more concerning to me because remember, everyone was going back and forth in the preseason. Well, he's going to play wide receiver. He's going to play defensive back. He's going to play wide. Oh, no, now Jacksonville's saying he's going to play what? He's going to focus on wide receiver. He's not. Now, he did make NFL history last night. He was the first player since 2008 to start on offense and defense. So we're seeing a little history. He had 9.4 points. He had 3 targets. I am concerned that this is what Travis Hunter is and is going to be. If Jacksonville, is going to continue to play him on both sides of the ball, it's going to negatively affect him as a wide receiver. We can go back to Deion Sanders, so many years ago with the Dallas Cowboys. Deion Sanders actually was making a bigger impact as a wide receiver than Travis Hunter is right now. You can't play Travis Hunter, Marks. You can't. Like, if you're in an IDP type of league, I don't even know if you can play Travis Hunter still. And if this is what he is, I mean, did dynasty managers waste a high pick on this kid?
So, yes and no. I mean, I think we saw flashes last night, right? 3 catches for 64 yards. The catch down the field was unbelievable. He also had another play in the middle. It was on a 3rd down where he made like 2 different guys miss and almost got the first down. It ended up setting up a Cam Little field goal. He's not getting the targets right now to be a weekly starter. But I just think at some point, Jacksonville is just going to lean into him being a full-time receiver because, frankly, they need it. Like everybody else in this game, Parker Washington, Diami Brown, they all kind of let Trevor Lawrence down. I think bigger days are coming for Travis Hunter. And I think once we get to like November, he's going to be the go-to receiver in this offense, not Brian Thomas Jr. Ooh. You're just going to have to wait a little bit. Like I know this is all very frustrating, but I just watched that game last night, and it's like Travis Hunter just moves differently than everybody else. And I wish I had better analysis than that, but I think at some point they're going to have to lean into him.
What gets me is when you look at the ADP data over on our site over there, our friends at Dynasty League Football, he's going way too high. He's going ahead of guys like Garrett Wilson. He's going ahead of Emeka Egbuka, who is absolutely criminal. He's going ahead of Rashee Rice. He's going ahead of Rome Odunze. It's not. This is not what, folks. We thought Travis Hunter could be that unicorn, and he has become that unicorn. But unfortunately, that unicorn has. Let's put a hole through our wide receiver production. It's just not. I don't know that it's going to get there. And I think it's bold to say that he'll be the number 1 option when he's not even focusing on that one position, Marcus. I mean, he's got to play both sides of the ball.
I just want to have people remember, like during Jackson Smith-Njigba's rookie year, he had 600 yards and he almost did nothing in the first 2 months of the season. It's not uncommon for these guys to take a little bit of time. And again, Travis Hunter's trying to learn 2 positions. I just think you're seeing the talent flash at least consistently enough to be excited. I don't think anybody's moving him down dramatically in their startup drafts or, how they're valuing him. I think we'll be okay here.
You, my friend, are far more optimistic than I am. I am. I can tell you that right now. Because if I had to do it all over again, seeing what I've seen, I know it's only 5 weeks. I'd be out on Travis Hunter. Yeah, especially if I'm not getting defensive points for him. I would be out on Travis Hunter. As talented as he is, he's got to play both sides of the football unless they decide, like you said, that they're going to move him just a wide receiver, which would be a boon for fantasy managers right now. That's not something that it looks like we're going to see into the foreseeable future. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the loss of Omarion Hampton, and I'm going to get some tissues because I am very upset about that. We'll talk about Hampton and what it means for the Chargers backfield and your dynasty squad. That's coming up next on Locked On Dynasty. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathe work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. Who doesn't love leather upholstery? With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Of course, I'm Fabs. He's Marcus. We got to talk about Omarion Hampton. I don't want to talk about Omarion Hampton because I'm depressed about Omarion Hampton. He's going to miss at least the next 4 games with an ankle injury. Initial reports suggest that it will only be 4 games. So let's keep some positive thoughts there. But Najee Harris is already done for the year. We saw him unfortunately tear his Achilles earlier in the season. So now you're down to Hassan Haskins and Kamani, you know how I like to call him, Vidal Sassoon. Kamani Vidal as the 2 top backs. If we're looking at the next 4 weeks here, Marcus, like, which one of these backs do you prefer? Because my guess is that, these guys are maybe floating around out there in Dynasty.
So first of all, with Omarion Hampton, this is nothing to freak out about from a dynasty perspective. It's 4 games. He's going to miss the month of October. He should be back once we get to, the last couple of weeks of the fantasy season, your fantasy playoffs. So you're fine. This is the advantage of being in dynasty leagues. You don't have to freak out over an ankle sprain. It'll be okay. So we're not moving him up and down. I wouldn't trade him. I don't know that I would go out and try to acquire him right now. I mean, you can if you want to. I think the price will be a little bit depressed compared to what it was a week ago. But again, don't panic there. As for the other Chargers running back, I think you're going to want to get the guy that's the better pass catcher here, because I don't know about you. I don't think this Chargers offense is very good right now. I don't think they can block very well. You want to get the guy that's going to be involved in the passing game. And you would think that's going to be Kamani Vidal because of what he did in college and what his role has been with his team previously. I think Haskins is going to be the short yardage goal line back, but I want Vidal here pretty clearly.
Well, see, I'm on the flip side of that. I'm going after Hassan Haskins because I think he's more of a better fit for like the game that Greg Roman likes to play on the ground. He's kind of the bigger of the 2 backs. I think it's going to be a committee. And I feel like we're in the same scenario with the Chargers this week as we were with the Cardinals last week. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Michael Carter, or is it going to be Amari DiMercato? I think initially DiMercato's name came up, and then they talked about Carter bringing him up, and Carter ended up having far more touches, a better fantasy game, and DiMercado is going to go down as being a dope for dropping the ball before he crossed the goal line.
And so now we're kind of clear. Situation.
Yeah, and now we're kind of clear on what the Cardinals' backfield should look like this week. We're not sure yet with the Chargers, and you've got.
Is there a chance that we just don't want either of these guys? You're putting in waiver claims for them, but is there just a chance that you really don't want to start these guys unless you
Marcus,
absolutely
they got
have
Miami.
to?
They got Miami this week, man. Miami just made Rico Dowdle look like, the second coming of Christian McCaffrey last week. I mean, so yes, I mean, Haskins, they're going to be in lineups. There's only 2 teams off this week. You got Minnesota and you got Houston. They're off this week. That's it. But still, think about the running back situation right now around the league. Okay, so you got to have Jordan Mason because he's on a bye. The Texans' backs have not been great, but you don't have either one of them. James Conner's out for the year. Bucky Irving is hurt. I don't know when he's coming back. Chuba's banged up. And then you got other running backs like Derrick Henry has done nothing since week 1.
No.
Alvin Kamara has done nothing for the most part all season, and Henry Miller is stealing snaps. Kenneth Walker has not been good. Chase Brown has not been. We're talking about fantasy. Kenneth Walker is very good.
Kenneth Walker's been awesome,
not in fantasy because Zach Charbonnet, it's a committee. Chase Brown hasn't been good. We drafted Travion Henderson very high, and he's not. Maybe things will change now that Gibson's out for the rest of the season, and we'll see. But running back has become wide receiver is very difficult because we've had so many injuries and so many players not play up to the level of production that we projected. But running back's getting there too. And so I got to be honest with you. I think Hassan Haskins is going to be in a lot of starting lineups in week 6 because of the matchup alone and because of the offense.
It's just, man, it's such a hard decision because I could also see them. They can't block, and that's the thing. Like all of Omarion Hampton's production really came as a receiver the last couple of weeks, and that's where I think Vidal is actually a better player. But maybe he does kind of take that Gus Edwards role that we saw last year, and they try to lean more on the run game. I wouldn't blow a lot of my fab budget on either one of these guys if you're playing in a fab league. From a waiver wire claim, I guess you go with Haskins. I prefer Vidal, but I don't think either of these guys are league winners. And honestly, they're probably just guys that you are playing during bye weeks for the next 4 weeks until Hampton gets back.
I will say this, Michael Carter wasn't even on the radar. I had a pretty good game last week. Sometimes opportunities are just as important or more so than talent. And we've seen that. I always go back to Sam Congatto way back when with the Green Bay Packers. If you don't remember the name, go look it up. I think he's a doctor right now, and I'm not even kidding. But for about a 5-week stretch, I think it was in 2005. I can't remember exactly. He was better than LaDainian Tomlinson. It was insane. So
remember Jonas Gray? Remember that one big Jonas Gray
game
against
the
Colts? Yeah.
I mean, listen, we can go back to Nick Goings. I mean, there's all kinds of guys we can go back to who got opportunities and took advantage of the opportunities. And, whether it's Haskins or Vidal Sassoon, again, I kid. We'll find out. I'm going to go with Hassan this week, Hassan Haskins, as my waiver claim, but I am putting in a claim for both. Okay. And the matchup's very good this week against Miami.
Is there anybody else out there on waiver wires that you want to try to pick up? I mean, it's kind of a rough week. I mean, Theo Johnson, I know, and maybe not so much in your dynasty leagues, but
AJ Barner's been good.
Yeah,
at tight end. There's actually a few tight ends. You mentioned Theo Johnson, who all of a sudden started to pop a little bit. Mason Taylor's owned in every dynasty league 2 weeks in a row. He's been good. I don't love the matchup this week against Denver, but Theo Johnson, my guess is that he's probably not floating around out there, but AJ Barner might be floating around out there. There's not a whole heck of a lot. You could mention Isaiah Bonds, but my guess is that he's long gone.
He's probably gone. Yeah.
In most dynasty leagues. So you know how dynasty is, it's very thin. I'll put it that way. But both of those Chargers running backs are probably out there in a lot of dynasty leagues. And those are going to be the guys that you're going to spend your fab budget on. If you're desperate at running back, or you had maybe Omarion Hampton on your team and now you're going to be without him for the next 4 weeks, Marcus. So thank you as always for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland, we still haven't come up with a nickname for you, by the way, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On Dynasty on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I will be back tomorrow with Matt Williamson. Marcus is going to be going to his
I'll be on the beach for the next 3-4 days. I'll be back on Monday.
Mai Tais and not concerning himself with the NFL, at least for a few days. So we will see you guys tomorrow.